Hi, welcome to High Output, the podcast exploring how today's engineering leaders are building tomorrow's high-performing teams. I'm your host, William Cheng, and each episode we sit down with visionary engineering leaders who are forging new paths in our rapidly evolving field. Join us as we gain a window into tomorrow's software organizations and discover what's next for both our profession and the entire software industry. Now for a short note from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Maestro AI. Engineering leaders, let's be real. Building high-performing software teams has never been more challenging. You're juggling delivery timelines, team health, and the constant pressure to communicate what the heck you're doing upward. That's where Maestro comes in. Maestro enables you to improve velocity, spot blockers, and make decisions faster. By seamlessly integrating with your existing tools like Slack, Jira, and GitHub, Maestro cuts through the noise, revealing exactly where your team is spending time and energy. Visit getmaestro.ai for more info, because you don't know everything, but Maestro does. Our guest today is Glenn Vale, Senior VP of Engineering at Order.co. Order.co automates the entire procurement process for businesses, from requisition to payment, while providing visibility and control over their spend. Glenn has over 3 decades of experience as an engineering leader, so we're in for a treat. All right, Glenn, tell me a bit about yourself and how did you get into engineering and engineering leadership?
I got into engineering very young age. I started toying with a lot of different technology. It was the old like Radio Shack computer with a cassette tape. That's where I started. So a lot has evolved since then. So, but in terms of like how I got into engineering leadership, it was really not an intentional thing. I started a job at a small stock brokerage in Portland, Oregon, and as a privately owned company. I was hired as like the most senior software engineer, but no leadership responsibilities. I was about a week into the job. Their website went down. The owner of the company, the owner of the company called me up. He says, "Glenn, you need to fix this." And like I said, I'd been there a week, so that was exciting. A little bit of pressure. Pretty influential man in Portland too, so there was even a little bit more tension there. But I was doing Java at the time, and people were struggling with closing database connections. So I ended up just going down to this really dark room in the basement. DBA was down there. I said, "Hey, can you open the connection pool? Let me know what you see." Sure enough, it was full. So I resolved that and felt like I resolved it pretty quickly, but I came in the next day and the vice president of the company was standing at the front door waiting for me, which is a bad sign. You're getting fired. I was looking.
Yeah, not sure about that.
I was looking for a box to pack up, honestly. I thought, oh, I guess I didn't fix that fast enough. And she goes, owner of the company wants to see you. So I went into his office and he says, "Glenn, you're director of technology." And said, "Thank you." And I walked out the door. I had no idea what to say. I just walked straight out. I walked upstairs and I was kind of like waiting for some announcement or something that I was going to be in charge of something, but I really didn't know what it was. And there was a whole technology team upstairs and I just had no idea. Like I waited for like half a day for some messaging. And finally I just told that group upstairs, we were up in this big loft. I said, "Hey, I think I'm in charge now. Here's what the owner told me." So
Oh, wow. So they didn't even know.
They didn't know. No one knew me. So as you can imagine, I had no leadership experience. I didn't even know what it meant to direct anything at that point. So
Yeah.
so that's how I got into it. So as you can imagine, I learned a lot of things hard way to begin with. So a lot of failure.
That's an incredible story. It also shows sometimes, you got some stuff done and they actually noticed in a good way. That's great.
Yeah, I wish I'd have been a little bit more prepared for it, but
Well, tell me a bit about that. What did you struggle with when you first started? What were some of those mistakes?
a lot of it was just on the people side of things. I never managed people. I never hired anyone. So I struggled with hiring. That was kind of the key thing, particularly just like finding the right people for the job that we need. So that was a pretty big part of it. The other thing too, like at the time, like I think I didn't realize at the time how much technology and leadership in technology is about people. I focused a lot on the technology because that's what I knew and not enough on the people side of things. So that was a huge lesson from it. And the only thing I really did well in it is I ended up helping the owner of the company make some good business decisions and make some good money out of it. But
That's
even in
great.
that, there was a lot of learning. He wanted to sell the company. He asked me what he needed to do to make a little bit more money to sell the company. And it was this really small private stock brokerage with like a 23-person engineering team, which didn't make any sense. And they had built like their own systems for trading and things like that, which was just wasn't really a smart thing to do at that point because there were
Wow.
a lot third party platforms for it. So I told him, I said, hey, we migrate to this platform, you know, can scale back engineering. And at the time, I said that so naively. It seemed like so obvious in hindsight. Like, so I ended that job literally by laying off by the end 30 people over the course of 2 days,
Wow.
giving them the message that they were out of a job. And yeah, that was gut wrenching, a horrible way to start. I honestly didn't
Yeah.
be a leader after that. I was kind of done. I went back to just went back to do some coding and things for a while, but
Yeah.
it just, no matter where I ended up in a leadership position, just all sorts of weird circumstances. So eventually I just accepted that was my fate. And I never figured this out. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, the world wanted to steer you down that path.
yeah, I just finally embraced it. So I better figure out what I'm doing. So yeah. And I
That's
just had like all
crazy.
sorts of weird scenarios. Like the VP I was working for got sick and then they put me interim and then he came back and he didn't want to do it anymore. So it was a comedy of like situations that just it was clear what I was going to be doing with the rest of my life. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, it also good job to really step up there. I mean, those are it's not easy even if you get that chance to really step into the role. And it sounds like there's while you it took, there's some getting used to it.
yeah,
Seems like it was probably the right fit.
yeah, yeah. And I would say I also eventually found my purpose in it, which is the most important thing. Figuring out
Yeah.
what's going to make me get up every day, get out of bed, and lead people. And I think once I found that, that was a game changer for me. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What is that? What is that
I
that gets you out of bed?
the thing I love about leadership is I love um, helping the people who work for me get where they want to go. Really,
Hmm.
especially like I love coaching leaders. Like my management team and things like that. That I love that part of it, and interacting with them and helping them like become more autonomous and be able to do more independently and promoting people. I just love that piece of it. Um, I had a really tough job. Uh, and it was very like hard leadership group to work with and things like that. And the company was very small and we scaled it pretty significantly. And I got to like develop a lot of like, people that came out of code school and a few years later, they're like, operating as directors and things like that.
Oh,
And
nice.
that one experience, I never got any good feedback in that role. I knew the CEO didn't like me. That was the only feedback I got from anybody really that was helpful. But like when I left that job, there was this incredibly like emotional parting of ways with people and just people expressed a lot of gratitude for that. And that was a moment I realized like that was what I really wanted to continue to do. And
Yeah.
you're helping people like very early in their career and over the course of like, 3, 4 years, they're making better money, being able to do things they want to do, be able to start families, buy homes and things like that, and just like helping them build up and then like especially like after you part ways like that, and then you see them excel there and move on to other things, and like just watching those journeys of people, I think's great. And the way I illustrate it to myself a lot, and I think about this every day that I wake up, is that like when I'm done, which isn't that far away, I want like this
I
just
don't know. You might have another 3 decades left.
I don't know, maybe. But I want this like great wave of leaders
Mm,
that follow me. And I want to leave with people because I want to leave like those leaders with this idea that you can be you and be a leader. Because the thing I struggled with it a lot was I saw this image of a leader as being a very extroverted, rah, like,
mm-hmm.
very stereotypical, like what an executive looked like.
Right.
That is not me. And I struggled with that for years because I couldn't be that and be comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And the times I've tried to be that, it just fell flat because that wasn't me, right?
Yeah.
And I work really hard with leaders to help them find themselves in that and just be comfortable managing their teams in a way that fits like their values and the things that they want. Um, they want they want to do and help them find their purpose that way too. Uh,
Yeah.
so that was really important for me once I figured that out. And yeah, that's the part of my job I love. I just love that piece of it with people and seeing them grow. And even ICs, like I love like meeting with ICs and just talking about the things they're working on developing and uh,
Hmm.
help them, understand like what they can accomplish and things like that too. So I love the technology part, but the people part's still the next.
So
So
you shifted over time, right? Because in the beginning you said you're going deep in
oh
the
yeah,
technology, but now it's really how do you raise the next generation of
oh
engineering
yeah,
leaders?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Okay. Shifting gears a little bit,
Yeah.
what are your biggest challenges?
Um, I think always just time. Never have enough time for
Yep.
anything you want to do. Yeah, and like really, I think the key thing, my biggest challenge is really just making sure that I'm prioritizing things well. I think most of my
Hmm.
job is moving. I can't do everything, so my job is
Hmm.
moving pieces forward at the right time.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always like trying to like seeing what's coming, making sure that we're positioned really well to like deal with whatever changes we're going through and things like that over periods of time. And sometimes that's hard stuff to see, but sometimes it's really obvious too. But yeah, that's the biggest challenge is just making sure that things are all moving in the right direction and focusing on the right things at the right time. Because there's some things that can wait. You
Yeah.
you spend the times on things that can wait, then that's not the right place to be spending your time. So
Well, especially at a startup where there's always too much to do and not enough people to do it.
yeah, and we all have 3 or 4 jobs. So
Hmm.
as you know,
Yeah. Well, it'd be nice to only be able to focus your entire energy in one thing. So,
absolutely would.
but not the way life works.
Yeah, that is for sure. So.
Okay, okay. Well, how do you get that visibility? How do you know what's coming? Or how do you know what the state of the world is even?
Um, I think like this was when time and a lot of gray hair helps. Well, hair helps, but yeah, definitely definitely it's time. Like I've seen a lot of like the same patterns over the years of things.
Hmm.
And for me, like I'm always trying to, stay really connected to now, but like also like, okay, in 3 months, like what's going to be different about like how we're operating and
Right.
taking in like business strategy, how the teams are evolving and things like that too, like that's always changing. We as a company we as part of like how I scale teams, like we have this stage where we focus on really getting really good like as an individual team, right, and
Mm.
coaching at a high level. um, Creates some issues though, because like that group's very siloed. And you tend to have like roadmaps and things that are focused on those teams.
Hmm.
But we changed a lot over the last year and a half to like focusing more like on this company-wide vision and roadmap and things like that, right?
Hmm.
So that introduced a lot of change for us.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
late last year when we were headed into this change, it was about like, okay, what's going to change? The key thing was like we were all going to become dependent on each other suddenly, right?
Hmm.
All the teams. So we had to figure out like we had to do a better job of like interacting together, interacting across teams, and we were planning work, understanding other domains better, thinking about
Hmm.
dependencies, like who's working on one when, like we formed a data team separately too now, and like
Mm.
focusing a lot of data analytics, data science work, and that's got to get integrated with the platform. That was part of the roadmap. So we had to like start to like reinvent some of our planning and things like that and how we approached it. Be a little bit more methodical about like here are the things we need to think about when we plan and things like that. And then yeah, just that cross team like collaboration, part of that's just a social thing too, making sure people are feeling comfortable
Right.
talking to each other. And we had some challenges with that for a while. There was some difficulties in how when we did find out we were dependent on each other, it was sometimes very late in project. Um, but those are the kinds of things like I spend my time thinking about when I take a walk
Yeah.
during the day is like what does it look like in the future? And yeah, and that's I think the fun part of it because like especially at a startup, things are evolving so quickly. Um,
Hmm.
and you change one variable, right, in the company, and it can be in a different department. We recently hired a SVP of finance. That's going to change things for us a little bit, right?
Yeah, of
How
course.
I work, how I think about work, and so just being aware of like all the variables around you, and like noticing and paying attention to when they shift, and then you shifting with them and getting ahead of it. Not always ahead of it, but I do a pretty good job of being ahead. There's still things that sneak up on you once in a while, but
Of course, of course. Well,
really,
we're
I
not,
think I missed that obvious thing, but
yeah, we're not all,
yeah.
we can't read everything all the time, so makes
Yeah,
sense.
but it's like most things, you get 80% of the way there, usually the 20% you can deal with when you get there.
That's a good philosophy.
Yeah.
That's a great philosophy. Okay, so now we're entering the age of AI, where a lot of engineering leaders are saying, you have some people on one side saying, "I'm not going to hire any more devs. We'll just do all AI," which personally, I think is ridiculous. But on the other hand, you have people saying like, going really gung ho. Other side, you have people super skeptical.
Yeah.
Have you seen any changes? Or where do you see this going?
Um, I do think I know we are for sure, like getting more efficient as an engineering team with the use of AI.
Hmm.
It's actually something that's kind of evolved like over the last month. So, we're using coding assistants. Um,
Hmm.
I had a check in with one of our senior software engineers who told me he's not writing much code anymore.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's having to agent write
Interesting.
it. Yeah, so and like we encourage that for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
What
so
agent is it, by the way?
Copilot,
Just
yeah, she's using,
Copilot. Okay, nice.
and it was a little shaky when he first started using it, in terms of that, but it's
Yeah.
definitely improved over the last several months and things. But and like throughout the team, like we don't have any standard for that thing. Like if
Hmm.
you can do something like that, be more productive, go for it.
Of
Um,
course.
and so we have like you know e- everyone's using some form of it to different degrees, but yeah, we even use it like on the infrastructure side of things with AWS configurations. I was working with one of our platform team members, and we were doing some configuration stuff, and it was throwing it into Windsurf and let's see what it tells us. Let's review it together, and oh, that looks right. Let's deploy it. And it's fun to see. And I have a lot of conversations when I do my check-ins with like everyone on the team. Like I'm pretty up.
Hmm.
I'm like, the world's changing around you, right?
Right.
We're gonna see some things shift, especially the more we integrate with some of these models that we're producing on the data science side of things. Like a lot of that back end work's gonna shift and move away a little bit too. Um, so I think like, that's something like you have to think about going forward. And I just think like I don't think we'll ever not need software engineers. I do think that
Right.
we're going to be leaner as teams. And I have, specifically tried to stay really lean because of some of this stuff, like
Yeah.
getting more efficient individually. We're seeing it in some of the data we have just in terms of performance of the teams and things too. And, um, just being able to, you know, kind of leverage those tools and keep using them. But as a software engineer, you're going to be reviewing a lot of code, right?
Right.
Your own code,
Right.
and, we got Copilot, as you saw in our configuration. That's reviewing some of our code now too. They're doing a really nice job.
Yeah. It,
Yeah, it's changing quickly. I mean, I've seen several waves of innovation in my life.
hmm.
Um, I was around when the internet was becoming a thing. I saw that
Yeah.
the cloud computing stuff and the IoT stuff happen, and um, it's just fascinating to me how like quickly like the tools are evolving right now.
Does
There,
it feel different? Does it
oh, yeah,
feel different than
it feels
before?
faster.
Mm.
Yeah, it's quicker. It's evolving quicker. I remember like even some of the web development platform things we were doing, and how some of like the middle tier framework stuff evolved. For that, it was so slow at the time,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the competitive landscape was a little bit different too, but it just wasn't this quick. Um,
Hmm.
you know, Something that didn't look like it was going to be viable or even work like 3 months ago, now you're like, oh wait, months later. And
Here it is.
computing, frameworks too, like AWS and Google, like Google platform, like they just like things have evolved so quickly. We
Hmm.
were doing bedrock training, 6 months ago. I was like, I don't know. But and here we are, like we're using SageMaker and things like that in that platform, and they work for us, and been a pretty quick way to get some of that stuff stood up. So that's definitely helped. And then personally, there is not much that I don't use AI for in my role anymore. Yeah. Yeah, and it ranges from so many things. Like I had a software competency matrix that I had created for the team, and that I added 2 roles, left the columns blank, gave it to Chat GPT, asked it to finish defining those 2 roles, and there's a few minor things I changed, but like I'd have probably spent or thinking about what the words I was going to use for it. But yeah, so it's something that's it's changing everything now. It's moving fast. So yeah.
Okay. Well, last question for me. What do you see happening next? If you could predict 5 years out, or maybe even 3 years out, what do you think is going to happen?
I think companies in general, as they start to apply AI, are going to become very efficient internally and operate at very much lower cost than could have, now or 10 years ago. I think that's going to be a big thing, because a lot of this initial AI stuff is focused too, like on some internal optimization of those internal processes that are pretty costly and things like that too. So I think that's going to be changing and shifting in the landscape a lot. And in the market right now too, there's already that expectation that you're operating as efficiently as you can, and I think that's just going to continue to evolve, and I think that'll be the pretty interesting thing. And I play that out like 10, 15 years. I think about like how much the job market's going to change in this field, and probably in the world too, just because there's going to be, so many things will change with the stuff we use AI for, that, there'll be maybe a little bit more time for leisure. Time for work, I hope. That's my dream.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of High Output. If today's conversation was useful, please take a moment to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Engineering leadership is evolving rapidly, and we're committed to bringing you insights from the front lines every week. Visit getmaestro.ai/highoutput for show notes, transcripts, and past episodes. Until next time, I'm William Cheng, and this has been High Output, where we explore how today's engineering leaders are building tomorrow's high-performing teams.